Welcome to the first edition of the English version of the Craft Entries podcast. My name is Thomas Sausen, and since 2017 I've had a German podcast about Craft CMS. 2022 shall be the year I dare to podcast in English as well. First a few solo episodes, then in the second half of the year I will welcome guests. At least that's the goal, get out of my comfort zone. The idea came to me after .all 2021, and although it was a purely virtual conference, it was one of the highlights of the past year, purely in terms of Craft CMS. Craft 3 had two good releases last year. Craft 3.6 improved usability. For example, newly created entries are automatically saved as unpublished drafts. Admins can now imitate or test other users without losing their session. For this purpose, a URL can be copied to the clipboard and then called in the incognito mode of the browser. Meanwhile, viewports of smartphones and tablets will be displayed in the live previews so that you can test the content in the other sizes. Craft 3.7 brought inline element editors throughout the control panel in the summer. These now use the new slide-out UI, so there's access to the entire field layout of the element, including custom tabs and UI elements. If desired, the meta fields can also be displayed, such as name, who uploaded the file, and file size, plus a preview of images. An extra button then links to the items dedicated edit page. Otherwise, the official Craft CMS accessibility blog has been launched. I was pleased about the roadmap, where everyone can see which features are roughly pending for the next version. The team around Craft got new members with Tim, Lupi, and Kenneth. Back to .all 2021. As it is tradition, the event was opened by Brandon Kelly, and he first gave a comprehensive update on the current state of Craft CMS. Kelly welcomed the more than 230 attendees from 25 different countries and showed 4 very different sites that use Craft: ProPublica, The Next Web, Barefoot Contessa, and Titus Vodka. Craft sales are growing steadily, and while no absolute numbers were given, Kelly confirmed 20% year-over-year growth after the talk. Therefore, it is not surprising that the internal Craft team continues to grow and comprises 16 permanent employees. The plugin store, which was released 3.5 years ago, I think, together with Craft 3, also show how lively the ecosystem around Craft is. At that time, it started with only 200 plugins, but now 898 plugins are represented. Currently, the team is working on a new version of Craft ID, which will go online this year as Craft Console. Besides visual improvements, the news will be that the Craft Console will support enterprise and organization accounts. These have the advantage that they can belong to multiple Craft IDs and support additional members with different permissions. These accounts will remain free, and licenses of Craft CMS and the plugins can still be managed there. Anyone who wants to publish a plugin or be part of the partner network will need such an account in the future. Existing Craft ID accounts will be migrated automatically. Craft Cloud was first announced at .all 2019 in Montreal and was planned as a headless Craft service. As a limitation, neither templates nor plugins were to be supported, but software updates and DevOps work were to be omitted. Initially, the service should have launched in 2020, but instead we only got an info update last year. According to that, the service would have replaced Craft ID and could have been used for headless CMS projects. The latter would have cost $20 per seat per month, and the whole thing would have gone off without any practical limits on content volume or API requests. Although the team was very enthusiastic about the project, the concept failed to excite the community, so Craft Cloud will not be released in the envisioned form. User and license management will be handled by Craft Console in the future, while Craft Cloud will serve as a platform as a service for all Craft projects. What this will look like in concrete terms has not been yet revealed. It should be considered a managed hosted version of Craft CMS. The Craft demo sites and the official website are currently running with Craft Cloud. Since .all 2019, Craft 3.4, 3.5, 3.6 and 3.7 have been released with drastic changes. The update process was therefore not always easy because some plugins caused problems. Furthermore, it was not always evident whether an update of a plugin could lead to problems with a new version. Pixel and Tonic already announced last year that it would rely on semantic versioning in the future. These plans have now been concretized since, unlike planned for 2020, there will only be one instead of two major releases per year starting in 2022. This is similar to what Apple does with iOS or macOS, where a major release with new features is published once a year and the other updates are usually bug fixes or minor improvements. Consequently, Craft 4 and Commerce 4 will appear this year, Craft 5 and Commerce 5 in 2023, and so on. The important thing here is that the major releases must be compatible and the minor releases will not have any breaking changes. For the user, the great advantage should be that in the future, clear statements can be made whether plugins and CMS are compatible with each other or not. The previous version jump from 3.6 to 3.7 is sometimes considered too small by customers or private users and therefore quickly clicked on update. In contrast, the change from 3.x to 4.x may command more respect. From a service provider's point of view, this is a welcome innovation as updates can be better planned. Furthermore, the new features and the resulting customer benefits can be better communicated each year. From Pixel and Tonic's point of view, there is the advantage of reliability. There will be an annual update and all new features ready by then will be packed into this release instead of postponing the release again. We all remember the problems in the run-up to Craft 3. However, the disadvantage is that if a long-awaited feature does make it into, say, Craft 4, you have to wait at least another year for it. The Craft 4 beta is scheduled for Q1 2022 and the final release is planned for Q2 2022. The roadmap shows the innovations that are planned for Craft 4. It is not yet possible to estimate whether all of these functions will ultimately be integrated. After all, the concrete work on Craft 4 only started after the release of Craft 3.7 in July 2021. Furthermore, Brandon showed a few innovations. collections. Similar to Laravel collections, the possibility is created to transform arrays differently. This way, elements that support eager loading will be rendered as collections in the future, and you can loop through them like you would with an array. Administrators can create inactive user accounts and assign content to them, and the element indexes get more filtering options. In the future, you can give custom sources their labels and define what type they will be displayed as. This can also be combined with filtering the element indexes, or the settings are then saved in the project config file. Interestingly, there was relatively more minor news regarding Craft 4, improving the overall experience. Beforehand, I would have expected a demo of metrics and metrics or conditional fields, both of which are still planned for Craft 4. On the other hand, Craft 4 has only been in development for 3 months as the time as the demo was shown. The days of Pixeltonic working on multiple Craft versions in parallel are over, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing. I'm looking forward to the major annual updates available starting in 2022, because currently it is strange that Craft 3 is over 3.5 years old, and then in a dot release the process for publishing entries and drafts is wholly changed. Better planning and reliability should be the result, otherwise I was thrilled to see the growing ecosystem, because with Nitro and Cloud Console it is becoming more apparent that Craft is more than just a CMS. But at the end of 2021 there was more news about PHP. Nikita Popov, one of the leading developers of PHP, finished his work on the programming language last December. The PHP Foundation has now been established to secure the future of PHP, but what does that mean exactly? Nikita Popov is no longer working at JetBrains, but will be taking care of LLVM and Rust in the future. Popov, along with Dmitry Stogov, was most recently considered the driving force behind PHP. At the end of 2018, Popov finished his computer science and physics studies at the Technical University of Berlin and started looking for a job. He then started working at JetBrains in January 2019 to improve the PHP ecosystem further. Quite successfully, as during that time he worked on significant PHP releases 7.4, 8.0 and 8.1. Just how important PHP is to him is shown by the fact that Popov started working on PHP back in 2011, while still a student. His first contributions were to PHP 5.5, and over the past 10 years he has implemented countless language features, bug fixes, and made numerous improvements to the language development process. What will happen to PHP in the future? At first glance, this is a blow to the community when the current primary maintainer of PHP leaves the language. But perhaps it also shows how fragile the open software world is, as maintainers have a heavy workload and don't always have the financial means to take care of the language exclusively. In the case of PHP, the language powers 70-80% of the internet. Popov was in a unique position as a permanent maintainer at JetBrains. JetBrains points out in its blogs that during the 26-year history of PHP, numerous people have actively contributed to the development of the language. Rasmus Lerdorf, Steve Zurasky, Andy Gutmans, Nikita Popov, and many others. So change are not unusual per se. In any case, this is how one could describe the establishment of the PHP Foundation, a non-profit umbrella organization that will oversee and ensure the independent evolution of PHP. JetBrains started considering the establishment of such a foundation as early as mid-2021. They talked with Joe Watkins, Sebastian Bergmann, Stefan Pripsch, and numerous other companies and community members. From these discussions, the following companies, all of which have a strong interest in PHP, were among the founding members of the foundation: Automatic, Laravel, Acquia, Zend, Private Packages, Symfony, Craft CMS, TideRace, PrestaShop, and JetBrains. There's an illustrious list, I would say. Automatic is the company of WordPress founder Matt Mullenweg, which operates the blog service WordPress.com and is generally involved in numerous WordPress projects. Laravel and Symfony are among the popular PHP frameworks, and of course I was happy to see that Craft CMS is also a co-founder. But how is all this to be financed? PHP Foundation relies on Open Collective, a foundation as a service provider that takes care of the legal aspects and accounting. Vue.js, Open WebDocs, Webpack, and G Framework also use Open Collective. The goal is to raise $300,000 annually with planned donations from all participating companies. JetBrains will contribute $100,000 annually. This will enable the company to hire full-time PHP core developers and pay them market salaries. I very much welcome the creation of the PHP Foundation. The foundation will help with one of the fundamental problems: how can an independent open source project be maintained full-time? Because maintaining open source is not easy as long as they are primarily run as a hobby. Maintainers have a life that needs to be financed. In addition, PHP is maintained by a small group compared to other open source projects. On the other hand, such an association of important companies can lead to PHP gaining further importance. As much as Jamstack is attractive and currently hot, it must not be forgotten that PHP offers a robust foundation even after 26 years. Strong frameworks, countless CMS or e-commerce solutions, and all this with little technical effort. Moreover, the language has been evolving excellently since PHP 7. Thus, I hope that the PHP Foundation can be an essential step to securing the future of PHP. Back to craft entries. At the beginning of 2021, I published the redesign with Tailwind CSS. I also brought the Crafter section back online, although there were no new entries there for half an eternity. I then took this as an opportunity to change my template structure, so also the templates of the articles and links were adapted. More dry, more macros instead of only partials, and the use of the newer trick filters. Craft entries was one of my first craft projects, and so I've been dragging the code base around with me since 2014. So craft entries is around since 2014, 2015, and in the same year the famous craft link list started, and after 5.5 years, John Morton left his Craft Link List project in January 2021. However, Pixel and Tonic, the team behind Craft CMS, will continue the link collection. I wish him all the best for the future. We both had a similar idea regarding our Craft link collection back then, with the difference that he collected the links in newsletter form with 122 issues, while I published them directly on the website. But what can we expect in 2022? The most important news will be the releases of Craft 4 and Commerce 4. The beta is intended for the first quarter of 2022 and the release of the final version for the second quarter of 2022. From then on, major annual releases are planned, meaning Craft 5 and Commerce 5 will be released in 2023, much like iOS. Otherwise, we can expect new versions of Craft Nitro and the releases of the new Craft Cloud and Craft Console. So the ecosystem will be expanded once again. Away from Craft, I hope the pandemic ends and maybe it will just be a calmer year without significant crises and disasters. We all deserve that. That should have been it for this week. If you want more Craft CMS news, follow me on Twitter at CraftEntries. Thank you for listening. Until next time, your Thomas.